you've spotted a player that you think is going to slip to day 3 of the draft, and you like him so much that you're willing to trade up to the top of the 4th round that Saturday morning and get him in if he is there. Mike Tannenbaum, is there that kind of sleeper on this draft board for you?
Oh boy. I'll tell you what, if we could go maybe a little bit higher, one thing we haven't really talked about that I think is really worth an interesting discussion, guys, and I'd be curious to get your view from an analytics standpoint, but David Ojabo, because he has really long length and really good get off. And unfortunately, he tore his Achilles, Mike, at his pro day. He'd be a guy that if we're sitting there in the middle of the 2nd round, you got to think about doing it, because if he's healthy, if you didn't know anything and just watched Ojabo and Hutchinson back to back, Ojabo is a really intriguing prospect. I'm curious how you guys saw him from a number standpoint.
Yep, he was really good. Total points rating was up at 97, so that's kind of on the Madden rating scale. So very good overall. Really good as a pass rusher. Not as good in the run game. He was a little bit lagged behind there in terms of some things. But you saw the athleticism, the flexibility, all that kind of stuff, and it really showed through on his pressure numbers when he was in there.
Sax Hero likes Ojabo too. It likes a lot of guys. And, a lot of guys come out pretty similar as pretty good, and Ojabo's one of them. So, I mean, I agree. There's a lot of talent there. You just have to take the redshirt year.
I was grading him in the 1st round. I know some people who are grading him ahead of Hutchinson in terms of the pure traits, et cetera, et cetera. He's currently plus 200 if you're a wagering type to go in the 1st round. And he seems like the kind of guy that one of those teams at the end, the Buccaneers, the Bills, we can say, well, the Bills have so many edge rushers, but one of those teams say, we can just take him and wait for him to get healthy. That's a possibility for him.
Mike, just one to put a ribbon on that discussion.
Yeah.
If there's a big difference if you're a team taking him at 29 versus 34, 35, because you get that extra year, especially with the injury. That's going to be a really interesting sort of like discussion. And again, it just bears repeating, Teddy Bridgewater, Lamar Jackson, they were both the 32nd pick in the 5th year. And that's why I don't think Detroit takes a quarterback at 2, but I do think if they're on the clock, they do take one at 32 for that same reason.
So we're still on the sleeper question. We have that sleeper. Matt, have you picked somebody out for us?
I was going to say on the Ojabo front, one more thing to point out about him. I might hesitate from the 1st round pick just because he was a 1-year production guy, really.
Yes.
We really don't have more on film there, more sample size of what to believe there. So I'd probably be a little bit hesitant to go that high with him, but I do agree the upside is there.
My favorite sleeper among the Football Outsiders projection systems is Sam Williams, the edge rusher from Ole Miss.
Yes.
Awesome.
Whose numbers look a lot like a high pick. He had 12.5 sacks at an SEC school and a strong combine performance, and yet he's being talked about as like a 5th or 6th rounder.
Right.
So again, I'm like with Matt. No, don't like to trade up in general, except for quarterbacks.
Right.
But if there was a guy that I would trade up for in the 4th or 5th rounds to try to make sure to get, that's the guy that stands out to me.
All the more reason to take him. Does Isaiah likely qualify? I don't know where he's getting mocked at these days. He's
getting mocked in like the 3rd or 4th, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say I would be excited about him if we're going to sleep on Friday and we're talking about somebody who's going to be one of the first players off the board on Saturday. If he's around there, you're talking about an H tight end, so a guy who's really going to be your move guy. He's got upside as a receiver for days. He's got all kinds of production in what he did at Coastal Carolina.
Yes.
I think you can expect a bit of a ramp up. I think that the mental side of playing tight end on the NFL will be a little bit different than what he's accustomed to. And I don't think you should expect a ton as a blocker right away, but I think he does have the frame where that could come around as he develops into his career. So in the beginning, you have kind of an explosive playmaker, but then I think you'll have somebody that could actually mold into a well-rounded tight end down the road. So he's one guy I'll throw out that at a money position. A guy off the radar, Damone Clark, linebacker out of LSU. They found an injury at the combine with him. So he's somebody who's not going to play this year and had to have surgery and deal with all that kind of stuff. But he could be a guy that gets stashed away for a year. Before this even happened, he reminded me of a Jalen Smith type already. Just looking on the film, not that sort of a high end, but somebody who, when you look across the board at his numbers, really stood out. A lot of play speed as an inside linebacker, good length to him also. So he's somebody that now you're talking about probably even later than the 4th round, an investment in this sort of player, because it's going to be a red shirt. but he's somebody that I think could come around and be a high level starter if he can get healthy.
We'll throw one guy out there that I like a lot, Tariq Woolen, cornerback, Texas San Antonio. Not exactly off the radar after the combine, comes in at 6'4", runs a 4.26 40. And you go back and you check the film on this guy, and he's a converted wide receiver. He spent his first couple of years at Texas San Antonio at wide receiver, moves over to cornerback. You're watching him in press man coverage, and he can run with anybody. He's got the size to run with anybody, match up with anybody. Now, why isn't he first, second, third round? First of all, you might imagine he's a work in progress. He probably isn't going to be there at the top of the fourth round, frankly. But if he's there at the top of the fourth round, that's a guy that I say, I'm going to trade up. I want 4.26 feet at 6'4". I want a guy who's going to match up ideally with the top receivers in the NFL. And this is a guy with the potential to do that.